Blessings, everyone. Blessings. So I give people time to get on. Give time for people to get on. Blessings. Blessings, everyone. For those that know my ministry, I don't like for just spectators. I like for participators. So I'm a prophet that like to get people involved and raise up leaders. So I'm a trainer and instructor and teacher at heart. So I just let me know when you where you from. Let me know where you from. Blessings, blessings. Well, I'm not gonna be up here long. I guess people can just go back. Blessings. I guess people can just go back and look at it, look at the recording. So I'm just gonna get up and get up here and get off. Hopefully, hopefully, just get up here and get off. I want to talk about this. Thing been on my heart for about 3 days. Basically, well, actually last week, but about 3 days at the most. I know 3 days for sure. All this week it have been on me, but the Lord did drop some things in my heart last week concerning it. So, but to release it, I felt it was the time to release it today. There's a lot of presumptuousness going on in the body, and the Lord want to speak on it. He want to speak on it, and I want to come up here. You know, we don't talk, we don't hurt the sayings, presumptuous prophets and presumptuous prophecies, and I want to kind of come delve into that today. I want to talk about presumptuous today. Um, I put some things in my book, my first book, my baby, What Happened When the Prophet Prays, about presumptuous prayers. And it also would be included, a little bit more elaborated on it in my prophetic training manual that will be coming out the beginning of next year. But anyways, a lot of people, well, we're seeing a lot of presumptuous doings, and this time, they'll begin to get, words from the Lord, presumptuous prophecies. They'll begin to get the vision of the Lord, begin to get the word of the Lord, and they'll run with it. They'll run before time, before they get the wisdom of the Lord. When God give them a word, when God give them give them a vision, they don't take time to let that word come into maturation. They don't wait on the timing of the Lord. They don't wait on the time of the Lord to implement it in the earth. They'll go ahead without the Lord. Even with presumptuous prayers, the Bible talks about a man in Judges 11. I think it's Judges, the book of Judges, the chapter 11, that talks about Jathan. If I'm pronouncing his name right. After he vowed to the Lord, saying to the Lord that if the Lord give them the victory, that the first person, when they want the victory, when they come out, the first person that they meet, that they'll sacrifice that person to the Lord. They'll sacrifice that thing to the Lord. So he spoke that presumptuously, and not knowing that it cost him his daughter's life. His daughter was the first person that he met after they had won the victory. And another person which we know very well in the Bible, King Saul. King Saul made a vow to the Lord. I think it was dealing with when they were dealing with battle too. It was dealing with war, and it cost him his son Jonathan. And so there's a lot of presumptuous prayers that goes on in the body. And we don't really understand when we release these things. And I understand in the time when we are prophetically speaking, it's a good thing. But we have to also make sure we carefully, in that time when we're bubbling up and we're going forth, even in prophetic intercession, we have to make sure we carefully watch over the things that we speak out our mouth. because life and death we know are in the power of the tongue, and that what we release, we're going to eat the fruit thereof. And so we don't realize that we can release curses of our own life if we begin to presumptuously speak. We get too forward and too bold and speaking things and not knowing it can cost us even our loved ones, as it cost those that was in the Bible time. Even presumptuous prophecies. There was many that was in the body that spoke too quickly, too before time, and just being mockers, and it cost them their own life. And we know that we got plenty of mockers in our times now. But even as it was in the Bible, as it was with Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, we had another presumptuous prophet that came and tried to confront Jeremiah, and compete with Jeremiah, and tell them, basically trying to give them flatter words and saying that this is that they're gonna win, and they're gonna take over the Babylon and all of that, Nebuchadnezzar and stuff. But it cost him, I forgot the name of the prophet, but it cost him his own life. The next year, the Bible says that he died. And so we have a lot of presumptuous prayers, just like presumptuous prayers and presumptuous prophecies. And then another person that was in the Bible that did presumptuous doings and prophecies was a student by the name of Gehazi. We very well, some of us, we know the story concerning Gehazi. He began to lie on the prophet. His prophet his leader was by the name of Prophet Elisha. And so he wanted, because he was led and driven by greed, and wanted even also a good name, and all of this riches stuff. He was led by those things. He was led by that, and which caused him in the end to have leprosy. And because he lied on the prophet, and he spoke out of turns, his doing was wrong, and so he received leprosy because of him being too forward. That was the other times where he was rebuked by and chastised by the prophet by prophet Elisha, but that was this time, it was that the last time it had to be dealt with. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when we do presumptuous things, and Lord knows that we trying our best to walk in righteousness, where there is grace, greater grace for trial and error, as we exercising our gifts and our callings and our talents, and we trying to please the Father. And there are times when He will give us grace. But there are times when He will deal with us. We have to get chastised for moving too quickly. And even in these times, as I said earlier, going back to presumptuous praying, we have a tendency in the time of prophetic intercession. Actually, in the time of intercession. Not prophetic intercession, but in the time of intercession, there are times, and I put this in my book, What Happened to Prophet Praise, when we have a tendency, when an intercession comes down to, I feel, at a time of being selfish, because you begin to pray for the people that you love. You focus on the things that you want. You focus on the people that you love. But prophetic intercession is when the Lord disturbs you in this, and when the Lord reveals to you who to pray for, what to pray for, the places to pray for, and giving you the right time to pray for those things. And so anytime when you're just moving on your own will or your own heart's desire, it can put you in a place of danger. It can put you and bring it on false burdens on your own self, and even on your own family, because of you praying, or you doing something that God didn't tell you to do. As I put up there, presumptuous doing. And so when I was in the bathroom earlier, the Lord said a good will will get you out of the perfect will. And even having a good heart will get you out of the will of the Lord. Having a good heart, we hear people saying, you got a good heart, but a good heart will mess you up at times, because of you will be driven by your own desires. Understand me, beloveds, you can be driven by your own desires, and having a good heart can have you in the place of being doing good deeds and doing something good for people. And it can even position you in a place of being a people person and getting out of the will of the Lord. You being driven and you seeking for the approval of man and not the approval of God. And so God want us in a perfect will and not just the good and the acceptable will. And being presumptuous will have us being just in the good will and an acceptable will, but it will get us out of the perfect will of the Lord. And so we can begin to take on false burdens. We can get in relationships and get in places and get jobs that God didn't even call us to get. And even we can get in careers and go to school when God said we ain't time for us to go to school. He got this him laid up for just doing things and not seeking God. So therefore we have to really seek God for wisdom and the timing, which is wisdom. Wisdom will push us to seek the timing of the Lord to implement what God has given us. If God give us a plan, if God give a vision, we have to seek time to get a plan for that vision, and not just a plan and a goal, but we got to make sure we get the right timing to implement that. And then we have to make sure we find out if it's a place or anything. We got to make sure that we seek the Lord concerning where the place, the right place. Because we can just go out and get a vision and get the timing, but we'll go out and get the wrong place. We'll go out and implement it in the wrong location. So we got to make sure we make sure we seek God in every aspect when He's giving us things. And even when we're feeling things and when we're discerning things, because even if we discern something about anyone, we got to make sure if God wants us to implement that or speak on that concerning that what we're seeing. Now, we have to be we have to be good stewards of integrity. We have to be prophets and people of integrity. We can't go out and just blasting everybody and blasting every ministry and blasting everything that we see. And when it's wrong, God give grace. We in the dispensation of grace. It's not to abuse grace, but God give us time to go forth in grace and having trial and error. But there are people that move too haphazardly, too quickly in the doings and the things that they see and the things that they hear, and therefore they get the penalty. They get held up under judgment because they're moving too fast. They're moving too quickly and they're moving out of the time of the Lord. So God wants us on His timetable. He wants us to make sure we implement it and He get the glory from this. We don't want to make a mockery out of God when we're moving too quickly on things. And we're moving out His timing. And so we got to make sure in our doings, in our praying, especially if I encourage everyone, I admonish everyone that's out there that's not saved and you're trying to stand in the gap for anybody. You got to make sure you're being careful and you get the wisdom of the Lord. You ask God, you ask somebody, find somebody. Is this the right thing to do? Because your soul is not saved. You don't have the blood to sustain you, to keep you when you're standing in the gap for someone. And I always say this, anytime you're interceding and you're standing in the gap for someone, picture this, you're in a place, you're standing literally in the midst, even in prophetic, even in intercession and praying, you standing in the gap of that person, of that place, of that people. You're standing in the gap and you're about to get everything that was intended to hit that person, to hit that place. And so if you're not equipped and if you're not covered under the blood of the Lord, you're going to get everything that was intended to hit that person, that place, and that thing. You're going to get it out. And if you're not covered, you can prematurely die because of you moved too quickly and you didn't seek the Lord on that particular matter, or you didn't seek a counsel. You ain't have a multitude of counsel to advise you. This is not the right time to do this. This is not the right time to stand in the gap for this. You got to make sure you don't put yourself in anything before the Lord tell you to put yourself in. And especially for those that is not covered by the blood of Christ. And so I just want to come up here and share that just right quick and, just being careful, you guys, even when we get caught up in praying, as I said earlier, when you get caught up in praying, you don't want to make sure you move out of because of people rooting you on. They're rooting you on, and you thinking you moving by the will of the Lord and out of His emotions. No, you moving by basically the applause of people. And so when you start speaking, especially corporally, you start speaking and they start hooting and rooting you on, it can position you out of the will. So you got to make sure you govern yourself and you check yourself even when you're releasing the word of the Lord. You're releasing prayers because you don't want to be cursing anyone. And you don't want to be trying to stand in the gap when God ain't tell you to stand in the gap, because God sometimes wants to deal with people. But because you got yourself in a way, that person ain't gonna get it. He can't chastise them. He can't discipline them like he needs to discipline them. I always say, in my book, you make sure there's a time you got to get wisdom to make sure that you're not interceding for the wrong people and the wrong will, and because of your own desire. So you got to make sure you intercede. You ask the Lord to know, and then you get the wisdom how to inquire of the Lord. You get the wisdom how to ask God, is this the right time to do this? And even as it was with David, King David even asked the Lord concerning his own wife when she got captured. His own wife. He sought the Lord and inquired the Lord. He was specific in his praying. And so you got to make sure you inquire God. The Bible says, ask, seek, and knock. And we got to make sure we start asking God for wisdom and not just doing things presumptuously, just being too forward and bold. And even to the marriage couples, God shared this with me. Some of you guys are moving too fast. You don't want to wait. As it was even with King Saul. King Saul didn't want to wait on Samuel. He didn't want to wait on Samuel. He moved ahead of before Samuel and before the Lord. He didn't want to wait on the time of the Lord. So God is trying to develop patience within you guys. So let patience have its perfect work. So we got to make sure we wait on the timing of the Lord. If God give you a word, if God tell you something concerning your marriage, if he say something concerning your marriage and you see your husband or your wife is out of order and they out of the will of the Lord, you make sure you seek the Lord. You seek the Lord concerning them, even if they is out of his will. You stay the person that see. And you be the lion or the lioness over your home and praying and infiltrating the enemy's camp that's trying to infiltrate yours and probably have blinded your loved one. But you stay in the fight if God tell you to stay in the fight. If he didn't tell you to stay in the fight, you get out of it. But I'm just saying, there's times we move too quickly. And we don't want to wait on the timing of the Lord when God is trying to bring things in its full maturation. We don't want to move out of time, and when God said it is the time, I'm trying to do something, but because everything get out of whack and the floods coming, we want to run. We want to quit. We want to throw in the towel. But God is trying to develop something in you, just like he's trying to develop something in that person or that place that he's trying to bring forth. So we have to make sure we wait. We wait and be still and know that he's God and he's able to perform everything that he said that he's going to do concerning your marriage, concerning your life, concerning your ministry, concerning your business, whatever it is concerning, wait on the Lord. Because though it's hairy, still wait, because it's going to surely come to pass. But you must wait. You must develop patience. You must cultivate patience, giving time and attention even to patience. We want to run out of time, and we want to run ahead of God, and we want to get our torch because God gave us a word, and we know our callings and all of this, and we thank God for our gifts, and we just got accolades with this stuff, and we just running ahead of God, and we don't want to run ahead of God. Even as I said earlier, with a marriage, we want to make sure we give time to let God work on our loved one. Work on our husband and our wife. There's times when the Lord had to work on my husband. And I felt at a time I was building alone. But God gave me a vision. God gave me a dream. God gave me a word and reminded me of other words. And God dealt with it. If I would have got out, I would have threw in everything God destined for my marriage. I'm not going to get out. I know God gave me a promise. The same thing. My husband can say the same thing to you guys. There was times when I was out of the will and he prayed and I probably didn't want to do nothing. I gave up. But he didn't give up. And so we gotta stay persistent. We gotta stay consistent in everything that God has spoken over our lives until the time when He said it's time to move on. We got to make sure we get the permission of the Lord to move on and not to go ahead of Him. We got to make sure we wait on the Lord and make sure He don't confirm, especially when we're moving to another location, or even if we're dealing with something like dealing with your marriage. We got to make sure we get confirmation, especially when they're dealing with that direction. We got to make sure we get more and more, because our own desires, our own will, our own heart can mislead us. Hear me, beloveds. Our own heart, our own will and desires can mislead us. And because it sounds good, it's not always good. It may not always be the perfect will of the Lord. So we got to make sure we hear, inclining our ears to the Lord and making sure it's the right timing of the Lord, it's the will of the Lord, and not my own desire. The Lord has to give us a new heart. As he told the prophet Ezekiel, I'm giving you a new heart because the people that I'm positioning you in the midst of. So he had to give him a heart of flesh, a heart to be sensitive to the people. Because there are times, and I'm a midwife, there are times when people lash out at me. There are times when they want to give up. There are times when they want to throw in the towel with our relationship. They think I'm pushing them too hard or anything of that nature. They just come out. Some of them even, I done had people don't curse me out. They didn't know how, because of the contraction, because of the pains and all of that. They didn't know how to understand. They didn't understand it, or they didn't want to endure it. But as me, I understood the place where they was at because I done been in that place. I understood my assignment in their life. I understood what God told me concerning their life. So I didn't throw in the towel when it came down to them lashing out. I even fought even greater. It caused me to get even greater, and with my love coming harder when I saw them wanting to give up and lashing out. I said, you at the peak now. Your baby is sticking out. And those that midwife, they understand that terminology. So you got to continue to push past your pain. Anytime when it seems like it's not favorable for you, you have to push and not go ahead of the timing of the Lord. If you go ahead and you give up on that person too quickly, you're gonna abort their assignment, or you're gonna abort you're gonna help abort the newness that God trying to birth out of their life and yours. You can arrest your development as well, because they sent to you to help something in you, to help perfect something in you, just as well as you to them. So it goes twofold. You guys got both assignment in one another's life. They help to come to birth something in you, you come to help birth something in them, but the same way, they birthing something in you. A greater fervency in you. They stand strong, and despite of what, and continue to go forth like God told you to go, despite of all the pains, the floods that coming at your house, and all of that. So don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up, and don't go ahead before the timing of the Lord. Get the wisdom of the Lord. Make sure it is the Lord before you go ahead, because you don't want to be in grave danger because you went ahead of the Lord. That was a young prophet and an old prophet, and I don't talk about this story before, but the young prophet, he got a little too, well, he was misled by the older prophet, and he went off, he got a little presumptuous, and we know the story. The old prophet, he already lied and stuff, saying that the Lord said this, but we saw the end results of the younger prophet. He lost his own life because he did not stay in the will of the Lord. So we have to make sure we stay in the will of the Lord, the timing of the Lord, because God is trying to birth something greater. He's trying to do something greater in you. He's trying to teach you how to wait patiently on Him. He's trying to teach you, he's trying to see if He can trust you with the things that you see. Yes, they got a big struggle. They may be dealing with pornography, a strong perverted spirit. They may be in adultery acts and all of that stuff, but that ain't for you to blab. That ain't for you to go before the Lord and start blasting this person because you see their nakedness. No. No, God ain't entrusted that with you. He ain't entrusted that to you so you can blame. No, He entrusted to you so you can pray for that individual at that time. That's your part to pray. And even if God tell you to go to them, well, speak about it. You go to them and not shaming them. There's a way to do things. There's a way to do things. God want to see if you're a person of integrity. He's trying to perfect your integrity, not for you to blab, not for you to go ahead because you got discern of spirits and discernment. No, you got to get wisdom with discern the spirit. You got to get wisdom with discernment before you go ahead of the Lord. God trying to see if He can trust you. Trust you with His timing. Trust you with His word. Trust you with His vision. Trust you with His plan and His will. Can you wait on the Lord? Can you wait on the Lord to perfect that He said He will perfect? That He said that He will bring into manifestation. Can you wait on the Lord? Can you trust your Father? He's your Father. He's your great God. Can you trust Him to do everything that He is destined to do in even your marriage? Can you trust Him to do that in your marriage? Can He trust you to perfect those things in your ministry? Can you trust Him to bring multiplication to your business? Can you trust Him? My husband, we just had a dream, and the Lord had been doing it to him from the beginning. He told me that my husband would catch me in the spirit as well as the natural. And when he first told me that my husband was when he first told me that my husband was my husband, the Lord just gave me my husband a dream the other night, and he had a part two, and I had a part two. We dreamed about just about the same thing, and it was just so powerful. We were just reminded of our first love, because that's how God used to do that to us all the time. He used to give us similar dreams, and I have a part, and he have a part, and so we gotta wait even in that for the Lord to speak in people's dreams. The Lord still disturb your enemies in their dreams. And He showed me that Sunday night. And I think it was Sunday or Saturday. When I posted that, God would disturb your enemies. He will have your enemies to make peace with you in their dreams. You have to wait again, I say on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. And let Him perfect those things that concern you. Perfect those dreams that concern you. And your ministry and your business. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. Don't go before Him, because you can abort your marriage, you can abort your ministry, you can abort the business if you go ahead of time. If I would have gave up on even on my husband, if I would have gave up on my husband and want to go through, you're gonna go through the little floods, and them gave up on my boo. Praying to God, I would have forfeit the promises of God, and he may would have been with another woman. I ain't trying to get that. He ain't finna go with nobody. I'm his and he's mine. And I know what the Lord said concerning us. So therefore, I'm give up on him. Things get hard. Things I see him out of the wheel or not doing what I feel that he needs to be doing for my life. I'm not right. We're not right. Our heart is not right. And as I said, our heart only is time. So we got to the Lord before we go ahead of the Lord. So we abort the promise of the Lord. We don't want to abort. We don't want to have we don't abort our age. And just wait on the Lord. Go ahead of time. Stand in God told you not to stand in the that person. Can you intercede for the person? Understand, beloved, when I say that. When I say when the Lord told even and even you not to pray for those people because He's trying to deal with them Himself. You're still standing together. You've been overprotective by you always standing together. Moses stood in the and God deal with His loved ones. And so we don't want to be those ones that always stand in the gap but having presumptuous prayers when God is trying to deal with people. When God is trying to deal with others, we don't want to prophesy out of our own desires and our own will or things that we see. So just go forth and know the Lord have said stand on the time because we don't want to get and I had to come up here and just share that with you guys. I had to come up here and share that with you guys. Anybody to say about that? So just stay in His will. Stay in His will. I know I ain't preaching. I'm just coming, just giving some information that the Lord have given me, and I've been pondering on this thing, and He said it was the time to release it. I've been waiting on the Lord to help me to release this word, presumptuous. So presumptuous prayers, presumptuous doing, and presumptuous prophecies. So wait on the Lord before you release His word, release the prayers, and release the visions and the doings of the Lord. So just wait on the Lord and make sure you got the right timing and the wisdom to deliver what the Lord have told you to deliver and to go forth in. Amen. God bless you. Y'all have a good day.